Hello, I'm Bill Monroe, and welcome to episode 119 of 2-Minute Talk Tips, the podcast that opens with a practical public speaking tip in the first 2 minutes before getting into a deeper discussion about public speaking. Today's tip comes to us from special guest Chandler Walker.
So one actionable tip you can use is to stay in your lane whenever you talk. If you come up with something that you're not too sure about, throw it away until you understand and know more about it, and try to continuously evolve yourself, but also stay in the lane that you are in, because that's going to make you the most confident, the most respectful, and people are going to want to follow and listen to you because they feel that confidence.
Stick around, and after the break, we'll hear more from Chandler Walker. Welcome back. There's a temptation when we speak to throw more and more information at the audience. We see this manifest in unreadable slides, in long, boring talks, and few opportunities for Q&A or other audience interaction. And, I get it. In the corporate world, we are under pressure to cover all the material possible to, quote-unquote, maximize the value of the audience's time. Or we may have multiple internal sponsors for our talk who want to make sure we include all of their material in our discussion with the audience in exchange for the funding that we're getting. The problem is when we focus on everything, we focus on nothing. We disregard the fact that the audience needs to take away something. It doesn't matter if we say all the stuff if it doesn't actually inspire the audience to do something with it. Chandler Walker's tip about staying in your lane is important. It's not about knowing your place. It's about being comfortable with where you can add value and where you can't. As we go through today's discussion, you'll see that. You'll also see how he questions his audience to continue understanding how he can best add value. Chandler Walker has built a personal brand that has catapulted him to the keynote stage, fireside chats, and corporate speeches. He's spoken in the US, Australia, the Netherlands, and Canada. He also hosts the Chan's Logic podcast. Now, let's meet Chandler. So Chandler, thank you so much for joining us here on 2-Minute Talk Tips this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be on the show. I want to say thank you to everybody who's out there listening. And I hope we can give you guys a pretty impactful experience here.
Awesome. And you've certainly been doing a lot of that with creating a lot of impactful experiences here and around the world. But let's go back to the beginning, how this all started. So what's your earliest memory of speaking in front of a group or talking on stage?
Oh, man. I grew up with a father who was an entrepreneur, so we were consistently, even when I was 9 years old, he was taking me to customers' houses. I was listening to him pitch and the way he talked to people and the way he sold and the way he'd interact. And so I really got exposed to speaking publicly and in front of people, especially strangers, from a young age. And then as I got older, even if I didn't want to, I'm in a leadership position with people. And so I had to get used to giving ideas, providing actionable points. And it just grew more and more and more until I developed my personal brand that really boosted me into the sky.
Yeah, it's awesome to have those early formative experiences, that being able to learn as a kid about going out and talking to people and asking for business. Those are some really powerful lessons to incorporate at a young age.
Oh, yeah, it's huge. And you look at it, a lot of us develop these early childhood constructs that make us afraid of people. But as a child, I was exposed to strangers so often that I became comfortable with it.
So was your dad always running different businesses then, or did he, build one and just really take it through?
He built one and took it through. It's been open since 1980, since before I was born. Sometime in the 80s, still going. I think at this point, I've told him he should probably retire. He's been running this. Him and my grandfather both ran it, so it's been around for a long time. And it's funny, he told me not to take over any sort of business like that, and I should find something that was a little bit, provided you with that, be a post office worker. Just go there, get your retirement, and retire, be done. You don't need the stress of entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship is really it really takes a special breed to live and breathe that, and the time commitment and the energy commitment and just the focus that it takes to really succeed. So it sounds like you've always enjoyed speaking then, because, well, you've had to.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always had to be in a position to where I had to talk to people. I had to teach and instruct people to do things. I went to school for biology and biochemistry, and we started a blog we called Stone Age Fuel, where we talked about the fallacies between the pharmaceutical industry, the supplement industry, and what's actually going to optimize your health and wellness. And that turned into our first seminar series, which was the Fluff to Tough Healthy Eating Seminar. So we travel all over the world and give this seminar to people and talk to them about what it really meant to be well versus what you're being told by marketing material. And so it just continued to grow and snowball into that kind of stuff.
So who's coming to your seminars?
Yeah, so I have several different dynamics that I speak in. I have the health and wellness atmosphere, both from consumers. So consumers come to see us for our nutritional talks, our Fluff to Tough Health Eating seminars and talks, where we really identify and define what's going on. We talk about modern science. We make it entertaining so it's not boring and they don't glaze over and fall asleep. Then we have people who are business owners because we built a consulting agency that teaches people how to build profitable gyms and stuff like that. And so we do a seminar where I call it my 10 laws of marketing and customer-centered business. And so we talk about the 10 laws. We make it fun and entertaining and engaging. And then the last one that we really dive deep into is more of we call it optimizing health and wellness with the culture of care. So we have 8 steps to achieving freedom in your life, your thoughts, and ultimately finding true happiness.
Oh, that's awesome. So it's really about taking sort of these other programs you already have, these other business and what you've learned through there, and then going out and using speaking as a channel for sharing that story.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest and best ways you can build a relationship with people is to get in front of them and speak. If they can see you and they can humanize you and you can give them valuable information and actionable insights and entertain them a little bit, they're going to be a lot more likely to want to follow you in what you do. And I found that and the personal brand I developed have been incredibly powerful and impactful in not only growing business, but keeping people engaged and bringing new people in.
Right. So what goes into building your personal brand?
So the personal brand it's really a journey of your own self-discovery and understanding specifically the target market that you want to dive deep into. And when I built mine up, I just gave it a name. I called it Chandler, which is my personal brand. Every day I did a Facebook Live video that was 3 minutes or less, and I talked about a specific topic that I was well versed in. And then that turned into giving a quote apples, and we ask a question every day. So we engage, we inspire, and we entertain and get them to watch our videos, which ultimately builds that relationship in a way similar to what you do when you're public speaking. They see you talking, they hear your words, they answer your questions, and they feel connected like you've built a solid community around it.
So it sounds like you actually came about it from a whole process. It seems like most folks who have their personal brand, they go out and figure out, okay, now how can I describe myself and then fit it into the market? Whereas it sounds like what you've done is you went out and you did your market research, you figured out what goals you wanted to accomplish, and then you tried to build and define the brand around that market and those goals. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, that's accurate. And then along the way, one of my biggest things that I talk about is you have to listen to the market that you're talking to, because what you're talking to initially could shift and modify and adjust.
Yeah, I think questions are so powerful. A lot of times we take questions, we answer questions just to help make sure that folks understand what we're talking about. But really, when you take your questions to a second level and you listen to what people are asking and you start to think about why they're asking that can really inform the future direction you need to take your enterprise, your organization, your message, or really just clarify the things that you're not expressing well to begin with.
Absolutely. And then you find the biggest single most impactful way to clarify your message and to make it simple so a first grader can understand it is to ask your target market what they want and then continue asking, because initially they're not going to know what they want. But you continue asking, you ask in different ways, you learn to pry, you learn how to ask, and you learn what to ask. And then all of a sudden now you know what they want before they even want it.
So your focus is all, like say, all on health and wellness. You're working with the gyms. Physical fitness is very important. So how does fitness and health in general impact public speaking? How does it make a difference for somebody who's going to be on stage?
Yeah, I'd say when you're on stage, your important concepts are you need to motivate, you need to educate, and you need to entertain people. And one of the things you need to be cognizant of is your ability to be mentally well enough to be able to think quickly and react and respond without and and throwing in those filler words. You have to be able to complete a sentence, pause if you need to, and then continue your sentence, which requires you to already be thinking about what you're doing in an incredibly fast way. And at the same time, you don't want to stand there and hold a mic or just stand in one place or sit in a chair. You need to be up and down, moving, throwing your hands all over the place. Like I'm talking on this podcast, and I probably accidentally punched someone in the face because I'm moving my hands all over the place. But so these are the things, and if you're in good physical shape, if you could do this, you can move, you can talk, you can think, you can react, and you can make all of this happen without getting out of breath and having to break or pause or anything like that stuff.
Yeah, so it really can help then with what you're doing with your breath, with your air control, because all of that, if you're breathing well, then you're getting enough oxygen to your brain so you can think and you're not getting winded, and so you can accomplish more.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what it comes down to. How can I make sure that I continuously look good on stage? Because these people need to see me as someone who's worth listening to.
Right. And it probably also helps with all the travel when you need to sit in a coach seat on an airplane.
Yeah, exactly. My worst trip, I think, was Australia, 15 hours.
Ooh.
It's so difficult just sitting there for that long. You learn that, okay, I'm going to eat my meal, I'm going to drink 2 glasses of wine, take a nap, watch 2 movies, walk the aisle, repeat.
Right. Yeah, because you just end up with all this physical energy that you're not burning off another way when you're just sitting still. And I think there's a lot of that, too. When we start looking at all that physical energy that builds up, I think that's one of the challenges that folks have with nerves before getting up to speak. The body's getting ready for this potentially stressful event, kicking into fight or flight mode, and it's building up all this energy that just sort of bundles in you. And a lot of folks don't know how to release that. So how do you deal with nerves before a speech, or how do you encourage other folks to deal with nerves before a speech?
Yeah, that's a good question. The biggest thing that I do to deal with nerves and to make sure that my nerves aren't going to impact my performance, and what I tell other people, is I stay in my lane. I only talk about what I know. I only bring up what I know, and I only answer questions related to what I know. And if I don't, I'm not afraid to say I don't know, but that'd be cool to check out. And I don't put things that I don't understand into my speech, because the more I know about what I'm talking about, the more I'm a master at what I do, and the more confident I am, the more the audience is going to instantly and automatically respect me and want to listen. And the less likely it is that I'm going to fall apart. I'm going to think they don't like me, or they don't know me, or anything like that in that situation. And it's going to put me in the ideal situation for public speaking, which is confident on stage in my lane, and I know what I'm doing. And I think the final thing that we do often is we do this scenario where we call it fortune telling, or the doomsday scenario. I'm going to go on stage and they're all going to laugh at me. And you have to look at that. Well, why would they laugh at you? What's going to happen in that scenario that you're going to just be that terrible? Is that a realistic and real life scenario, or are you just putting yourself in the worst case possible scenario? And usually it's, okay, so I am putting myself in the worst case. Here's what's really going to happen.
Right. I have never seen a speaker get laughed off the stage in business or at any of the conventions I've gone to.
Unless it's comedy. Then you want to be laughed off stage.
Exactly. Yeah, the audience is generally going to be on your side because they don't want to waste their time. They're there because they want value, and they want you to give them the value.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And when you think about that as well, they came to see you, or they came to be involved in whatever event you put together. So understand that you already have at least a medium or a modicum amount of respect from them. So they're not going to instantly come in and hate you. You're not in some convention where everybody's anti what you are.
Right, exactly. You're part of them. You all have a stake in each other's success.
That's right. We're all in this together. You open it up, you have a little fun, you make fun of yourself, you make good points, and they leave and they think it was amazing.
So with your business and the things you're driving, how is it you came to be speaking in the Netherlands and Australia in addition to the US?
Yeah, so as we built up some of these other businesses and the personal brand, I started to realize that we were being seen and heard in over 23 different countries. And from that, we started to get requests. Hey, can you come see us? Hey, can you come talk down here? And so Australia, we got invited to the Functional Fitness Festival, sponsored by the biggest podcast in Australia. So we went down there and we participated in that with a big Q&A, a big talk. They have a show up there called Q&A that they were modeling this out of. And then the Netherlands, that we had a bunch of people up there who were following our brand. And so they reached out and started saying, hey, could you come up here and do a little talk for us? And so we did that. We got a bunch of people in the area together. They built it up together, and we went down there and gave our speeches and our talks. We did a couple things up in Canada as well with a bunch of people. And so the fundamental piece behind this was I started a personal brand where I gave an incredible amount of value to people. And because they experienced that value on a daily or weekly basis, they felt that they wanted more. And so they reached out because they trust and love what we did. So that way we could do more for them.
That's awesome. So your audience was already demanding that you come.
Exactly. Create the demand, create the market. The scarcity is already there because you're only one person and the relationship's been built. Then they ask. So if you build it, they will come essentially.
Right, right. So how is speaking in those different places different, or is it with it being your audience, is it pretty much the same experience, or do their own cultural norms affect how they listen to what you're saying?
So if they've been following your brand for a while, you can keep it pretty close to the way you usually interact because they're expecting that. And if you change it, they're going to not like what you change because people don't like change. But on the other end, you do have to be cognizant of the different cultures that exist in the different countries that you travel and go to. For example, Netherlands, they're very caring. They're not very abrupt. They're not brash, so that you can't jump on stage and be crazy with them. You have to understand that it's a different kind of environment, it's a different world. When you go to Australia's pretty similar to the way we operate in the U.S., so it's not a super big difference. I would maybe say they're a little more laid back and a little more fun, so you can have fun on stage over there. Canada's, it's a society on it as well. So the biggest things are the culture experiences when you go to the Netherlands, when you do anything in the Middle East, when you go to Asia and those places. You really just have to be cognizant of the culture and the norms and understand that you have to play into their norms in addition to already playing in your own persona you created in their heads.
Awesome. Awesome. And anything you can do to adapt to them. And once they realize you're doing that too, I mean, it's another way of showing that you care.
Exactly. And you can tell them too, hey, I always tell them, I'm an American. I'm talking to you guys. If you hate me, just throw some tomatoes at me and I won't even throw them back. I promise. And so you have fun with your audience. You're never supposed to, I always tell people, don't be afraid of your audience. Be afraid of not engaging with them and having fun. If you fear something, tell them that right off the bat. That way it's off your chest. Make it a joke and they're already expecting it. They're going to have a great experience.
Awesome. I think, the idea of just getting those things off of your mind can be really powerful. I know one of the things to talk about in are you a fan of the Harry Potter books?
I've read them. I think way back when I was in school.
I spend way too much time thinking about this stuff, but they have a device in there called the Pensieve, where wizards can actually sort of extract their thoughts and memories and just store them in a bottle to retrieve later. And anytime you can pull that stuff out of your mind to clear your mind, it helps a lot. And when it comes to talking to an audience, like you said, sharing what you're afraid of, getting that thought out of your mind clears it up so you can do other things.
Exactly. And you're taking the seed you've planted in your own head and externalizing it. So now they've heard it. So now the worst has already happened. It's over. And now you can move on and have a good time with them.
Awesome. Awesome. So how has the things that you talk about evolved over the years, or the way that you talk about your mission and your brand? How have they grown over the years?
Yeah, the mission and the brand have really grown and evolved based on the people we interact with, the situations we're in, and the different scenarios that we found ourselves in. And so the way it used to be was we had a PowerPoint presentation, we'd show it on stage, we told everybody what we were doing and how we were doing it. But now it's, I show up, I have my platform and my deck already designed, but it only has one word on each deck. That's it. You get one word, and I spend 3 or 4 minutes talking through that one word because now I've understood and realized that I'm so comfortable in my dynamic that I want them focusing on me and not focusing on the slides or the deck or the PowerPoint or any of the other things that are distractions, which ultimately has resulted in almost every speech being different. Nothing's ever the same. Nothing's scripted. So they don't expect and understand or know what I'm going to talk about until I walk up on stage. It is still within the modicum of what we're doing, and it is still within the brand and what they're expecting, but it's never the same experience.
And what I think is really important about that is that you get to that point by going through the process earlier on by having that more scripted talk. You know, you've lived this stuff so long, you know this stuff so well, that even when you get up there without a script planned out, you know, you've done all the prep work, you know all of this material, and you know where you're going to go. It's really about generating that custom talk every time from all that experience. You're not exactly winging it.
Exactly. And that's why I say stay in your lane. Because if I'm in my lane and I'm staying within what I know, I can generate that thing off the top of my head. I can show up now without even a deck or anything and just talk about what I know that they want, adjust and modify based on the way I think and see they're reacting during the experience, and really make it personalized in that regard. And that makes it so that your speeches and your talks and your environments that you go into, they don't get boring, they don't get weathered out, and people don't begin to learn and understand exactly what you're going to say. So you become less predictable and you become more serviceable.
It's interesting. One of the things that I see happen among a lot of speakers is that as they go along in their career, they start using fewer and fewer slides and simpler slides, and gradually they just start to disappear, and it becomes more about the speaker just being on stage themselves. And that's something that comes from that experience and that comfort level.
Yeah, exactly. And once you're at that point, it's the idea of mastery. I'm pursuing mastery in my craft, and mastery ultimately means I don't need props for people to follow and watch, and I don't need reminders or cues on what I need to talk about. I've already got it down so well. I'm in a position to where I can continuously talk about it, and I can change it, I can modify it, I can do whatever I need to do on the fly to make sure it's continuously entertaining, motivating, and engaging.
And it has the side benefit of meaning you have fewer typos to deal with.
That's right. One word's hard to screw up.
So you, as this has continued to evolve, and you've continued to evolve the Chan's Logic brand, you've launched the Chan's Logic podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I started my podcast. We're on season 3 now. And so I realized the podcast was a really good way for me to get my viewpoints, thoughts, and opinions and information out in a way to where people could get bits of it, and I could bring on relevant guests that I thought would be beneficial. And so it gives them a long form way of engaging and interacting with me. So I had Facebook, which was 3 minutes or less live videos. So I have them there with short form content. I have the pictures and the engaging questions. And then I realized I needed a way to engage with people a lot more long form. I needed a way to have them listen to me talk for an extended period of time because I just had more to say, and I wanted to continue that engagement realm. And that's where the podcast came into play. So season 1 was all about business. Season 2 was the people project where we just brought on a guest every week. And then season 3 now is the Culture of Care show where we take 4 topics per week. We talk about mental health, nutrition. We talk about all these we bring a guest on, and then the final thing we do is we pick a topic of the week and just go back and forth on whatever's going on in society.
Awesome. So what's been the most surprising thing you've learned in the podcast?
The most surprising thing that I've learned, and I think that I just came up with and decided, was the fact that in the market right now, people are saying you have to do short form podcasting. People aren't going to pay attention. The average commute's 23 minutes. So you need to make sure it's under that to get the ultimate attention of your market. But what I realized at some point was if I try to make it appealing to everyone, I'm ultimately going to get no one who cares about me. But if I create a podcast that's long form, 45 minutes, an hour longer, I'm going to get the people who really want to listen, the people who are having the biggest impact, and the people who are really going to be the ones who ask me to do things for them down the road, or do things for me if I ask.
Right. Absolutely. I think what I've seen posted a couple times online and makes a lot of sense to me is that the right length for a podcast is as long as it needs to be to cover the material and not 1 second longer.
I have this problem with books nowadays, especially nonfiction, not so much fiction because it's a story and it's fun. But nonfiction it's like 37 pages of words, and then the rest of it's just filler text to make sure that it's enough to be a book. And you're just like, you know what? I just read this whole book. 95% of it was filler stuff. The first 3 sentences were okay, and that's what I learned. And the entire thing could have been done in a blog post. Same thing with podcasting. So I need to make sure that I'm talking about the relevant topics, and I don't just throw a bunch of fluff and filler stuff in there in order to make it seem longer or make it just drag on, because then it's boring and nobody's going to want to continue listening to it.
So Chandler, folks want to know more about you and what you're up to and Chan's Logic. Where should they go?
Yeah, come follow me on my Facebook platform. That's usually the first point of engagement for everybody. It's facebook.com/Chan's Logic. It's Chan, Chans, Logic. So just Chan's Logic. And that's probably your best point. If you want to check out my website and blog or the podcast, just go to chanslogic.com.
Awesome. And we'll have all those links available over at 2minutetalktips.com/chanslogic. So
perfect.
So Chandler, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. Thanks for joining us here on the show this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the attention and the listeners paying attention to me and you and not glazing over and falling asleep while listening.
Especially if they're listening while driving.
That's right. Don't do that. All sorts of bad things can happen.
And also special thanks to your co-guest there that I hear in the background joining the show from time to time.
Oh, yeah. It's my new she's 6 months old.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, she's pretty good. That last couple minutes there, she was very upset.
Well, she contributed lots of values. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was bring your daughter to the office day. And she sits there and I think she gets it from me, but she just goes, and starts making noises with her mouth.
Well, as long as she's starting to build her personal brand.
That's right. We already got her an Instagram account.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot. This has been fantastic.
Thank you.
One thing I remind nervous speakers about is that it's not about you. It's about the audience. It's about the message that you deliver. And that's not just an important message about nerves, though. Chandler has built his brand by starting with the audience. What do they want and need to know? Then he's able to filter that through his own personality and his own experience to build a compelling personal brand and, more importantly, compelling talks. So head on over to 2minutetalktips.com/chanslogic to find links to Chandler's website, Facebook page, and other social media accounts. Subscribe to the Chan's Logic podcast and 2 Minute Talk Tips for free in your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. And of course, as always, don't get best. Get better. Thanks a lot. I'm Bill Monroe, and I'll talk to you next week.
Two-Minute Talk Tips is a proud production of the Currently Speaking Podcast Network.